Our Wednesday, June 18th, City Council meeting to order. If we can get a roll call.
Are we good, Riley?
I got no microphone, so. I got no microphone. Mayor Endicott,
Present.
Mr. Blades,
Present.
Mr. Rajaratnam,
Present.
Mr. Heyman.
Present.
For present, Skip is absent currently. I assume he'll be here, but we have a quorum. I'm on now.
Okay. Next item, approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second. Motion and second.
Please vote.
It looks like we already passed.
Okay.
Or do we need to do
I
it?
think we might have to go do a
Riley's
roll.
doing this,
Councilmember
so
Garland
let's
voted in
do
absentia.
a roll call for this one.
Okay.
Mayor Endicott,
Aye.
Mr. Blades,
Aye.
Mr. Rajaratnam,
Aye.
Mr. Heyman.
Aye.
4 ayes, 1 absent, motion carries.
All right. Next, we will go to closed session, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, Government Code Section 54956.9, Atkinson, Aquilar. Did I say that?
Yeah, Aguilar and Atkinson versus City of Ridgecrest.
First City of Ridgecrest et al., Kern County Superior Court case.
See you shortly.
Do we have a report out of closed session, Martin? Coming out of closed session, do we have a report?
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, council members. One item was taken up by the council in closed session, existing litigation, Atkinson, Aguilar versus City of Ridgecrest. No reportable actions were taken by the council in closed session.
All right, thank you. If I could get everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please stay standing.
Please join me in prayer if you would. Lord, thank you for giving us this day. Thank you for Ridgecrest, the place we live and the place we cherish. Lord, I pray for the leaders of our country. Lord, guide them and give them your direction so that they take the country in the right direction. Lord, I pray for the troops who are in harm's way. Lord, I pray for our police department who are out there all the time protecting this community from evil. Lord, bless them. Lord, their lives are on line from the time they put on the uniform and to the time they go back to home. Lord, bless their families. Lord, I pray for our staff who work hard for this community. Lord, the staff who reached milestones like 25 years, 5 years, and 10 years. Lord, bless them for their hard work and their commitment to this community, Lord. Pray for the city council. Lord, give us your direction and your understanding as we discuss so many issues that are important to this community. Guide us and lead us. Bless each one of us here today. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Amen.
All right, so first up we have presentations, some employee service award presentations. And none of them are here, so I'm just going to read them off here at the dais. We have Elizabeth Franco in recognition of 25 years of service, along with Ryan Maroney, 25 years of service, and Travis Reed in recognition of 5 years of service to the city of Ridgecrest.
Elizabeth is here.
Elizabeth is here?
She's walking in.
Oh, then we can do that
We're
down
gonna
there.
make it, we're gonna. Come on up, Officer Franco. You walk in and we're gonna call you out.
So we wanted to thank you for a recognition of your 25 years of service on behalf of council. So And all of these people showed up just for this, I'm sure.
Thank you. I want to thank the city of Ridgecrest, the police department, and just everybody that gave me the opportunity 25 years ago to start my life here in Kern County in Ridgecrest. It's been amazing. So I really am grateful.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm sure he's got something going on.
All right. Next, for the presentations, we have item number 2, updates on SB 1413 and SB 1466.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of City Council, I have with us tonight Michael McKinney from Capitol Corps, as well as Kyle Burchard, who is our legal counsel for the GA. Mr. McKinney will be giving the council an update on these two bills, and then Mr. Burchard will be available for any sort of legal questions. Mr. McKinney,
Good evening.
it's all yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, members of the community. Michael McKinney with Capitol Corps Group. I am the city's chief lobbyist. Excuse me not being in a coat and tie, but it is a little later than what it is in Ridgecrest where I am at right now. And so I am actually working from home. Basically, there are 6 adjudications that have been groundwater adjudications that have been filed in the state. 5 of them continue to be active. Of course, the Indian Wells Valley is one of those currently active groundwater adjudications that are out there. It is approximately 23% of the state approved GSPs that have ended up or resulted in a comprehensive groundwater adjudication being filed. The only one to be settled at this particular point is Borrego Springs, which was the very first one after Signal was passed. It was filed and settled by the parties. The others are in Ventura County and in Guayama, which spans, of course, San Luis Obispo County, Kern County, Santa Barbara counties, and in the Indian Wells Valley. This is a statewide public policy issue that are being addressed by these bills. They are not designed to solely impact the Indian Wells Valley. The Department of Water Resources has indicated that there are 3 main areas where current adjudications impact or conflict with the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. And those 3 are as follows. Efforts to modify the safe yield and or the sustainable yield through the adjudication process affects the ability of any public agency within the region to finance projects that might be considered to be sustainability projects. In addition, adjudications create the opportunity to initiate competing or conflicting water management plans within a basin. I want to bring that up because there is nothing in the statute that indicates that DWR's actions or that a groundwater sustainability plan can be overturned through a groundwater adjudication. And there is nothing in the statute that indicates that a physical solution in a groundwater adjudication can replace or supplant or modify the sustainability measures. So the ability to conflict with those and eventually create additional litigation with the state is high, and DWR has noticed that. And then the third issue that DWR has brought up is that adjudications can take decades and delay the implementation of sustainability measures, which are required to be completed by 2040 by Sigma. And in doing so, it can continue to allow for continued overdrafting of a groundwater basin, or may turn around and allow for the mining of existing groundwater supplies during the time that the adjudication is happening. DWR stated these in an informational hearing in 2025 in the early part of the session. The legislature has responded by introducing two particular bills, AB 1413 and AB 1466. The main thrust behind AB 1413 and 1466 is that Sigma requires a local process. It establishes a process by which there is public meetings, stakeholder input by the various parties, public hearings that have to take place, various forms where the public can participate and help create the groundwater sustainability plan that is then approved by the Groundwater Sustainability Agency and submitted to the DWR for its approval or validation, if you will. In that case, it's not the same as a validation action in a courtroom, but essentially DWR takes a look at each groundwater sustainability plan, ensures that it meets all of the requirements of Sigma, and also ensures that the Groundwater Sustainability Agency has met the requirements of the public participation in the local process. AB 1413, currently, that is by Chair Pappen of the Assembly Water Committee. That bill has passed two policy committees, a fiscal committee, and the Assembly floor. It is pending in the California State Senate and will go to hearing in its first policy committee in the coming weeks. What that bill simply does is it creates a mechanism to remove the conflict between the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act and the Comprehensive Adjudication Act. What is happening in this bill is that it says that the validation procedure in a courtroom, this is a legal process under which anyone in the community, any stakeholder may challenge the actions of the GSA, or the GSP can file a lawsuit. That lawsuit is subject, and I apologize for all of the legal terms, but this is a legal area of the law, hence the reason that Kyle is here to help me out a little bit. But essentially what has happened is the validation is a process. The procedure under which, or the action under which that is filed, is called a writ of mandate. That is done pursuant to Section 1085 of the Code of Civil Procedure. The Code of Civil Procedure at that section specifically outlines the ability and due process that will be provided to the parties within the writ procedure, within the validation action that is taking place. If a GSP is invalidated, it goes back to the GSA to be corrected. It is then re-subject to the court's review, and then it can move forward to the Department of Water Resources for approval. There are GSPs that have been challenged as they were in the DWR process, and those are still pending as far as we know. Those are, you've probably heard them referred to as the sport fisher cases. AB 1413 says, very simply, where you have a challenge to the sustainable yield, which is included within the groundwater sustainability plan, you must do that through the validation action. And then you may continue on through that process to adjudicate the final water rights. I want to make it clear that AB 1413 does not impede the ability of the court in any way, or even talk about how the court may or may not adjudicate water rights to particular parties within the region. It simply is a mechanism. The mechanism is designed to create a statute of limitations and to create some sort of certainty to clear the concern that you cannot continue to finance sustainability measures during a full groundwater adjudication. It removes that uncertainty for the public agency. The other thing that it does is it says that where that has occurred, where a validation action has taken place and has been validated, then the court may not set the safe yield, which is its jurisdiction, at an amount greater than the sustainable yield. And the idea there being that the sustainable yield has been validated by the court, and safe yield plus whatever augmented water supply is necessary in a region is really the equation that creates the sustainable yield. So therefore, if you validated what the sustainable yield is, you validated the part of that equation. There are two sections of the code that specifically deal with providing direction to the court in a comprehensive groundwater adjudication that state that the court cannot substantially impair the ability of the groundwater sustainability agency or the state. Those sections of code are section 850B of the Code of Civil Procedure and the Water Code section 10737.8. And they say that exact word. The judgment will not substantially impair the ability of a groundwater sustainability agency. Where the courts in at least two of the pending groundwater adjudications are having trouble is reconciling that with the litigant's request to do exactly that, change the sustainable yield, thereby substantially modifying the GSP. Or in the case of one of the basins, the Indian Wells Basin, requesting that the sustainability measures be overturned by the physical solution in the adjudication. Courts, both in our case and in the other case, have said that they are having trouble reconciling that. AB 1413 is designed to provide that reconciliation and create that mechanism. Arguments against the bill indicate that there are due process issues. Basically, the argument is that the inability to argue and challenge the GSP through the current adjudication process is removing their right to properly adjudicate the water rights within the basin. The fact is that the mechanism under which a validation action comes forward and validates or invalidates a plan has nothing to do with the ability of the court to then turn around and say, we're going to divvy up the pie, the amount of water in the basin, as follows. Nothing in the GSP is allowed to divvy up water rights. That is an action for an adjudication and is required. The second argument is that the validation process is insufficient to satisfy the abilities of the parties to challenge the GSP, therefore infringing on their water right. SGMA set up a process called the validation action that was exactly designed to do this. It's existing law. AB 1413 simply says you have to follow the existing process that we originally wrote in SGMA back in 2014. It's nothing new. Again, that does not impact the ability of the court to divvy up the pie during an adjudication process. And that is not the interest of any GSA because SGMA specifically prohibits it. And the other issue is over what we all have been told is due process. Parties in the SGMA process are afforded a due process through the participation requirements outlined in SGMA. In addition, they have the rights to file a validation action under what is known as a 1085 writ. And a 1085 writ is much different than other writs in that it allows the court to open up for cross-examination, introduction of evidence, and presentation of witnesses. There's been an argument against the bill that it is specific to the administrative actions that were taken by the GSA. That is not correct. As a matter of fact, the California League of Cities disagrees with the interpretation that a 1085 remit is limited strictly to the administrative record. What it does not do is it does not allow a party outside of the GSP process to introduce and seek what we call a de novo review, which is a complete and without deference to what the GSA has accomplished through the local public process. It doesn't allow you to introduce new evidence there. You must introduce it through the SGMA process, and then you can challenge it. To put it very simply, if evidence to the contrary of a sustainable yield established by a GSA were put before the GSA and the GSA completely ignored it, the court would have the ability to invalidate the process and send it back to the GSA and say you have to do that. And the parties in that validation action would have the right to introduce evidence, not only saying they didn't do it, but here's why our evidence was correct. And they can cross-examine witnesses and provide additional witnesses in support of their case. In addition, there's the regulatory process that provides due process, under which DWR must address any comments that are provided on a GSP. So before it can approve that process, it must turn around and comment and say, we've addressed any concerns, and here's how those concerns have been addressed as we reviewed and did our regulatory requirements under the SGMA process. Fundamentally, arguments that a de novo review is a right of a party in order to gain a water right, we do not agree with. It is not the right of an individual to basically wipe out the entire administrative record that SGMA requires in order to have their water right determined by a court. That brings us to AB. Well, hold on, let me back for 1 second. There are some pending amendments that are being discussed on AB 1413, and I think it's important for the council to hear what these amendments do. And we do not have final approval from the administration on these amendments, but they are pending, so they are relevant. There would be amendments to provide additional statements concerning the intent of AB 1413 to provide sufficient due process. There would be a limitation of the application of AB 1413 to only those basins with a state-approved groundwater sustainability plan that has been validated by the courts. And third, there would be specificity that any and all review of the GSP by the court should be accomplished by a 1085 writ. There have been parties that have said, we don't think that that's statutorily clear, and this would make it statutorily clear. And then the last amendment that has been proposed would codify the periodic review of a GSP. Periodic reviews are done through the regulatory requirements of SGMA. They were not a statutory requirement. This amendment would make the periodic review a statutory requirement. I read in the Ridgecrest Daily Independent recently that someone had asserted that it would set the sustainable yield and fix the sustainable yield at whatever the amount that the GSA said. That's fundamentally incorrect. During a periodic review, the GSA is required to look at the sustainable yield and to make any modifications. And if there are substantive modifications to any portion of the GSP, Sigma, by design, requires that to be subject to a validation action. So it's not like the GSP is adopted as it was back in 2020 and becomes a static or non-changeable document. It is subject to a periodic review. That's in the current regulatory requirements. The amendment would make that statutory. The proponents of the bill have agreed to those amendments. The opponents of the bill have not yet agreed to those amendments. The administration is going to make some technical modifications to those amendments, and I have not seen those technical modifications at this time. The second bill, AB 1466 by Assemblymember Hart, is in the same position. It has passed 2 policy committees. It has passed a fiscal committee. It has passed the Assembly floor and is pending in the Senate. This bill deals specifically with the de novo review aspect of reviewing the groundwater sustainability plan. And then it also deals with the ability of the court to meet its requirements to consider the needs of small farmers and disadvantaged community members. It establishes the standard of review for a GSP at substantial evidence. That means that deference is given to the Groundwater Sustainability Agency that produced the GSP, and that you can't just literally take everything and start over, which is a de novo review. Opponents have argued that it is their right to argue a de novo review in a groundwater adjudication. We simply disagree. The other section to this is that Section 850A4 of the Code of Civil Procedure requires the court in a groundwater adjudication to consider the needs of small farmers and disadvantaged community members. The Groundwater Sustainability Plan calls those de minimis users. They're small, 2 acre-feet or less. That is the requirement of the current law. There is no mechanism under current law that is required for the court in order to meet that. And so what has been happening in adjudications throughout the state is that people are, as we call it, defaulting members of the community out of the groundwater adjudication because they are not able to participate either financially, physically, what have you, in the groundwater adjudication. There are approximately in the Indian Wells Valley 8,000 members of the community that fall under that category. And in the situation that is what opponents are arguing at this moment in time, and I heard this as of yesterday, is that opponents are arguing that it is their right to be able to default small users. I know there have been statements made by officials in the Indian Wells Valley that say that that is not what is going on. But the actions in Sacramento and the actions within the courtroom are contrary to what is being stated publicly. We have a fundamental disagreement between the opponents that it is their right to be able to take people who cannot afford and who are small users and to default them out of the groundwater adjudication so that the court may not hear evidence in support of their potential water right in order to fulfill the requirement of state law. 1466 does this through a report in the groundwater sustainability by the Groundwater Sustainability Agency to the court. There are various ways it could be accomplished or a menu of options that you could give to the court to say, court, you can consider this through this report, you can consider this through class counsel, you can consider this through various means. Opponents have argued as recently as I said yesterday that no, they want the ability to force the participation of all parties who are claiming a water right, or it is their means to default them out. and we are at an impasse at this particular point with the opposition on that. From there, I will take questions from the council.
All right. I'll start. I just have a couple that I wrote down based on what you were saying. So am I correct in the assumption that with these two bills, you are hoping to correct Sigma as the
You are
legislature?
correct. You are correcting conflicts between Sigma and the ground and the what is colloquially known as the Streamlined Groundwater Adjudication Act. They amend both sections of the code so that they can basically harmonize with one another and reconcile. So you're not just amending Sigma, you are amending those sections of the code that also conflict with Sigma within the Streamlined Adjudication Act. That's not really a bill or an act. That is a group of laws that has been passed over years. And at the time that Sigma was passed, there was no way for the legislature to know practically how they might conflict.
Okay. Thank you for that one. The second, second question was, with the amendments as listed, does this set some sort of precedent to make it easier for either non-critically overdrafted basins or other types of entities to be affected by this as well? You know, thinking of like the long shadow of the future.
Mayor, this is currently affecting 23%. It's not only critically overdrafted basins. You have one highly overdrafted basin, the Upper Ventura River, that has a pending groundwater adjudication. In addition, you have 4 other basins where groundwater adjudications have been threatened as a means to either overturn Sigma or to stop sustainability measures from being implemented, or in some cases to stop any kind of action by the state regarding probationary measures. Each of the adjudications has a slightly different fact pattern, but it is the litigation strategy by certain law firms that is being shopped that mirrors what has happened in the Las Posas, Indian Wells, and Guayama basins.
And the last question that I have, and then other people can join in, but I guess based off of that that answer, then are you worried, or is there some fear of future adjudication becoming a major problem with California?
If this bill is not passed, there will be several additional groundwater adjudications filed in California as a means to stop. As a means to change the GSP, to stop implementation of Sigma, or to stave off probationary measures. It's a pattern that the state and DWR has recognized. I want to be very clear, this legislation was not written for the Indian Wells Valley by itself. It was written to address a statewide public policy issue that DWR sees on the horizon, and if they do not correct it, then yes, you will have additional groundwater adjudications filed in California. That's probably great for Kyle, but probably not good for a Kern County or a Tulare County or a Salinas Valley.
Thank you. That was lawyer Kyle, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm just checking.
Lawyer, Mr. Brochard. Mr. Brochard.
He also has dark hair and it looks like a better beard than me.
All right, any other council members have questions?
I don't right now. I appreciate that last statement as to the universality of the bills rather than targeted specifically to Kern County. Though I understand the initial bill narrative began here. Isn't that right?
We were the third groundwater adjudication that was filed in the state, Borrego Springs was settled well before the bills were ever even introduced. It was settled based upon the fact that it adopted the groundwater sustainability plan as the sustainability measures and as the sustainable yield. Las Posas in Ventura County, this is the Thousand Oaks area, was the second one. It is a critically overdrafted basin. It was initially settled by the parties, and then a party appealed the settlement and brought it back to life. So it is now an active groundwater adjudication, but it had been previously settled. And while the issues were being deliberated at the state, it was under settlement, but now no longer is. Indian Wells is the first groundwater adjudication basin that has had the active challenge to the sustainability measures as well as the sustainable yield. Guayama was the next in line, and now Upper Ventura River. Those are all of them, and they all have, as I said, different fact patterns between all of the cases, but a similar litigation strategy by the participants.
If I could just add to Michael there, the Las Posas adjudication was filed before they had adopted their groundwater sustainability plan, so that was different. And very different. And in our case, it was the first one where the judge who was kind of hearing all of these cases said that he was confused as to how SGMA and the adjudication statutes should kind of be worked together. And that was, one of the main impetuses for this all occurring.
And then the Guayama judge had a much similar statement that he was having a hard time reconciling those two sections of code that I brought up versus what was being asked for by the litigants, and that the legislation was not clear in how he was to proceed. That is the impetus for what DWR created with AB 1413.
I thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Mayor, after we're done here, do you think that the audience will have an opportunity to ask questions also?
They will. Any other council members have questions?
No, the two questions I had, I think were answered at length, and the first one was due process. And so you dug down pretty deep into that, but if you have anything else to add, either yourself or Mr. Burchard, due process seems to be a concern. It's been raised a few times. It's a valid question to ask. Just want to make sure that we're covering down.
Due process in terms of a public process and a local process being afforded to all of the residents within the Indian Wells Valley occurred during the development of the GSP, and also they were afforded the due process or the ability to comment before DWR, or as some did, challenge the GSP within a validation action. Kyle, I can't remember how many validation actions are in the Indian Wells Valley. Were there 3 total?
Two,
excuse me. I apologize. 2 validation actions. One of those is still pending, as a matter of fact. So you have that ability under the due process limit. And then beyond that, it was always the intention of the legislature to require that to be done under what is known as a 1085 writ. That 1085 writ is a process that allows the court the discretion to open up and allow for additional evidence, allow for the cross-examination of witness, and goes beyond the administrative record. Why that's important to a due process argument here in the Indian Wells Valley, or anywhere really, is that if you have that ability to go beyond the administrative record, you're not stuck to just what the Groundwater Sustainability Agency did in the hearing room. And did it just follow the process and check the boxes? You actually have to go in to what the conclusions may have been or what was ignored by the Groundwater Sustainability Agency. Those become challengeable, and the court must consider that. What the main difference between doing that in a validation action versus doing it in a groundwater adjudication is two things. One, there's a statute of limitations associated with a validation action. There's not a statute of limitations associated with a groundwater adjudication. And so you can bring the lawsuit from a groundwater adjudication years into the implementation of the groundwater sustainability plan and challenge it. And then the secondary part of that is that in all of the cases, they have asked for what is known as de novo review. That means complete, without deference, as if the process, the local process of the GSA never took place. The issue that DWR has with that council member is very simple. You were taking it out of the local process and you are putting it into a courtroom that is 160 miles away. And the judge is only required to hear the evidence presented to him by the parties that are participating. You're taking out all of the potential homeowners. You're taking out all of the small farmers. You're taking away that ability by moving it into a groundwater adjudication. So if you're going to challenge that, then there should be deference given, at least some deference given, to the Groundwater Sustainability Agency and the plan that it had to put through SGMA. It should not be just wiped out, started over, and, oh, by the way, only presented evidence by those who can afford to do so.
Thank you, Mr. McKinney. I appreciate it.
This question is from Michael. Michael, in regards to AB 1466, the 1,000 de minimis users that you had mentioned, that includes and encompasses all of the private well owners in the basin who, if this bill's not passed, will be at risk of having their water rights defaulted. Is that correct?
That's correct. I mean, I can put names to it. I can put communities to it. If you're talking about a disadvantaged community, you're talking about the residents of Inyokern. You're talking about the residents of other small mutual water companies that are out there. You're talking about small farmers. I've heard testimony provided by the Deckers. I've heard testimony provided by the Quist family. You're talking about those members of your community that basically are, if they cannot participate, it is the intention of the litigants to argue that they do not have a water right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just seeking a clarification. So GSP is to be evaluated every 5 years, and during that evaluation period, let's say the safe yield is scientifically determined to be 10,000 acre feet. So when the GSP was approved in 2022, we took 7,650 acre feet as a safe yield. So if that is proved wrong, and if it is proved scientifically that there is 10,000 acre feet of water, so can we take that into consideration for the GSP?
That is the way SGMA is written now. Yes, sir.
Yes, and you are not obligated to wait 5 years. GSAs have the ability to amend their plan whenever they want to reevaluate stuff as new evidence comes to them. It's supposed to be an iterative process. That's how it's supposed to work. It's just so everyone's aware, that is not always what happens in adjudications. There are basins that have been adjudicated, that were adjudicated in the 70s that have never had their safe field reevaluated.
Thank you. Thanks, Mayor.
So I have one more question that popped up while you were talking, and it's about the comments on the GSP to the Department of Water Resources.
Yes.
Is that sort of like a amicus brief that's given to DWP, or what's the comments? And how does the court look at that, or the DWP?
So there are two different ways that is done. First of all, in the process where a GSP is adopted and the GSA has received comments, the GSP must have a section that addresses the comments that it has received from any stakeholder and indicate what it did with those comments. And those are provided to DWR. They're included in the Indian Wells Valley Groundwater Authority, GSP. In addition, there's an electronic means under which You can file written comments. You can either upload a letter, you can type it into their online system. And again, DWR must address those comments as it approves or declares a GSP to be incomplete or inadequate. So you're aware there are 13 GSPs currently deemed to be incomplete within the state, and they have been sent back to the various GSAs for correction. There are 23 that have been deemed inadequate. Those are the 23 basins that you hear are in the probationary stages or are in that process of probation. There's only one at this particular point in time where corrective action or enforcement action is proposed. Not an enviable position for them. They are talking about either the imposition of a fee or they are talking about curtailing water use in the region. And that is in the Tulare Basin, the Tule Basin in Tulare County. I apologize. So the comments have to be addressed. They have to be put forward back to, and there have been issues where DWR has said you didn't adequately address the needs of stakeholders, and we're going to deem you incomplete. You need to go tell us what you did with that.
So it has to be stakeholders that can comment. Is that correct?
It's anybody.
Oh, okay.
Stakeholders is very broad.
Yeah.
Okay.
It could be literally somebody with scientific evidence on a particular basin that wants to introduce it to the GSP that has nothing to do with the development of the GSP process. It could be a simple homeowner in the region that comments to DWR or to the GSA. And I can't remember how many comments do you, Kyle, were in the original GSP. There's quite a few, but I don't remember. But they're addressed in there. They're online.
It was the largest section of the plan.
Oh, wow.
There you go.
It's 791 pages just responding to comments.
Good night. All right. I thought I was taking a venture down something not very topical, but that seems like a lot of pages.
I want to indicate something. That is not a defect of Sigma. That it is a design of Sigma to ensure that the local process is met. And the GSAs that take these things seriously and actually put forward a plan that does eventually get state approved have to go through that process.
All right. Is there any other council comments? No? All right. So while we don't normally allow public comment on presentations, I, along with my fellow council members, think that obviously this is an important topic that people show up for. And so we want to give the citizens a chance to respond, ask questions. I know this is abnormal, but can I get a show of hands of how many people want to comment so that I can try and figure out time frame? All right, so with that, we could probably do about 5 minutes per comment, and it will last for an hour. If there are anyone after the hour, we'll bring it back at the end to try and add more time for individuals to have their voice heard. Each speaker is asked to provide his or her name, and we're open for public comment.
Good evening, Council. Tom Wecknick. I guess I'll get us started. First of all, my concern is really coming from the process as far as what's happening with the city and how they're supporting this issue of these assembly bills without public involvement. I've been on the council before, and whenever I was chosen twice to represent the city, and when I did that, it was done in open session. There was public comment and open discussion, and the council gave direction which I followed. It was not done in secret or behind closed doors or hidden under the guise of attorney-client privilege, which we've heard a few times now. Let me talk about attorney-client privilege. It's a legal principle that protects confidential communications between a lawyer and their clients. Okay, we understand that. Guess what's part of that, though? The part of it is the client's privilege, and this is the law. The privilege belongs to the client. That's you, who can choose to waive it, but the lawyer cannot disclose information without your permission. So you can provide information to the people under the attorney-client privilege. That is not something that says you cannot. You can waive attorney-client privilege. Now, next on that whole thing is that making a decision to represent the entire city without us involved, I think is just so wrong. It is beyond even comprehension on something this important. I remember years ago, there was a big issue that involved the city and water district, and I can't remember what it was. But you know what they did at that time? They had a joint meeting, because apparently this whole thing has to do with the water district coming up with new numbers about the recharge rate and sustainability, et cetera, et cetera. And it seems like nobody wants to talk about that except the water district. So why don't we talk about that? I don't know if their numbers are right or wrong, but I'd like somebody to give me some evidence one way or the other. Back then, they had a joint meeting with the city and water district right here at this podium. You all sat together and listened to the public and took questions from the public so that both sides, water district and the city, could have a discussion in front of the people. Because right now, what we hear, well, what I've heard at least, is that there is not much discussion going on between the water district and the city. I think that's a problem. And then when you come along and say, hey, we're going to make a decision on these bills without actually involving the people, what you should do instead is remember one thing. And this is a hard concept to people that get up on the council there and they think they've got all the information. If you've got a position on an issue that a lot of the people don't agree with, then you're not explaining yourself well enough to convince the public that you have an answer. And you need to do that. It is your responsibility not to ignore the concerns. Right now, there's social media that has had, over the last week, over 6,000 reads of issues about this city and the water district and this issue. Yes, over 6,000 people have been reading about this. You know what that means? That sometimes, even though you have a strong opinion, and you may even believe you have the right answer, you need to convince the people of that right answer or not take that position. The hardest thing to do up there as an elected representative, and I'm saying representative of us, the people, what that means is you might have to vote in accordance with what the people want, not what you want. That's an important concept that a lot of people lose once they get up there and they get convinced they got more information than the public. I'll make the right decision and I'll take it to the grave. Start listening to the people. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that comment.
Mayor, would you like me to address any of that particular issue
Yes.
with regard to the process that has gone on?
Yes, please.
So the Sigma process, as I indicated that anybody could produce evidence and place it through that process. And that includes the scientific evidence that we've talked about with the sustainable yield. The periodic evaluation done by Indian Wells Valley Groundwater Authority was actually delayed as it requested the water district to place into evidence things that it could consider as part of the periodic evaluation. A decision was made by the Water District to enter that evidence into the courtroom as part of the litigation, not part of the public GSA development process. In addition, I will say this regarding the positions that have been adopted by the various agencies and entities. The Water District adopted a contract for a lobbyist. It has never once published a letter to its constituency or put that letter into the public record of what it is saying in Sacramento. And I know that because I've been involved in it. And it's been chosen as part of a litigation strategy that they have put forward. Again, the public process of discussing any new scientific evidence should be done through SIGMA, which is then subject to a validation action. It should not be subject to a de novo review in a courtroom 160 miles away where nobody can see it.
All right, okay. Next speaker?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Shirley Kirkpatrick. This is like deja vu all over again. I've been here doing this for about 10 years. So I'm going to talk a little bit about sustainability, sustainable. It's kind of a buzzword. It started off with Jerry Brown. I don't know if anybody knew about Jerry Brown. He was a former governor that started this. So I kind of thought in Ridgecrest we'd be able to push back on some of this stuff. So according to Jerry Brown, he famously stated that climate change does not recognize sovereignty. The statement emphasized the global nature of climate change and the need for international cooperation to address it. Anyway, so now here we're talking about AB 1413, AB 1466. So AB 1413 was authored by Democrat Assembly member Diane Pappin. Pappin also, I might be pronounced her name wrong, I'm sorry, induced a package of bills in the partnership of Sonoma Clean Power to advance geothermal energy development in California. And she states, we need to pave the way to develop crucial resources in California on a scale needed to fight climate crisis. California has set ambitious climate goals by requiring all retail electricity sales by carbon-free by 2045. Moving on to AB 1466, was authored by Democrat, I'm sorry if I'm going too fast, I don't want to run out of time, but Democrat Assembly member Dr. Weber Pearson is a member of a Joint Legislation Committee of Climate Change Policies. Are you guys kind of catching the drift? I'll keep going. According to Digital Democracy of Cal Matters website states, what's going on with the environmental issues of California 2025? California faces decisive moment amid major climate and environmental rollbacks under the Trump administration, while also confronting a deepening affordability crisis of pressure to meet the ambitious 2030 climate goals. That's on the same website. According to the article from Valley AG Voices on 5/6/25, Dr. Jasmine Baines states that the prospect of AB 1413 would require courts to accept a GSA sustainability yield determining a prima facie evidence that is accepted true unless rebutted. Also, representatives from the City of Ridgecrest and the Indian Wells Valley Groundwater Authority expressed their views that the adjunction process undermines the authority of SIGMA. I say I want to undermine SIGMA because it's the fox running the hen house. I discovered after attending the Indian Wells Valley meeting back in May of 2022 that the individual facilitating our Indian Wells groundwater meeting was Lisa Butler, and a Stantec facilitator to the Indian Wells Valley groundwater. Butler is executive facilitator of the California Water Plan. It manages the SIGMA facilitation support services program to help agencies establish governance structure. It is scary that Butler co-authored this article. In this article, you can find this online. SIGMA is an important laboratory for studying environmental justice, equity, political power in the context of environmental governance. This is communism under the guise of environmentalism. You can find that online. So Stantec is what she works for, which is involved in also in our groundwater authority, is proud member of they receive awards from the United Nations on SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, or a suite of 17 goals. That was, if you look on Stantec's website. Our project touches most of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Also, in the Indian Wells Valley meeting in is May of 2022, I just used this one particular meeting. I've been to several meetings, but with Lisa Butler, she stood right here and spoke, with DWR's Deputy Director of Sustainable Groundwater Management discussed land repurposing, Paul Gosselin. I said earlier, one of the unique facets of the law, which, yes, Governor Brown was the governor then, what was going to happen is kick this off. This is an eye-opener. 1 million acres of the San Joaquin Valley may go out of production. So you can see that meeting. The point I'm saying is we got millions of gallons of water that's going out into the ocean, and we got we got the aqueduct goes near us that flows lots of water from north to south, and we want to make a pipeline south of us. It doesn't make sense, but we have globalists that are making decisions for our water. And then I kind of find it funny because it talks about us being just handling it locally in Ridgecrest as a local process, but we got these globalists that are sitting in our meeting that are part of the United Nations making these decisions. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
I got a lot to talk about, I'm just kidding. Ron Kosinski. I'm going to go ahead and do this in two parts. The first thing I want to say is, as a director of Indian Wells Valley Water District, I heard Mr. McKinney's lecture, and that's exactly what it was. I wouldn't expect anything else out of the organization that was responsible for writing these bills. So I want to offer myself up. There were a lot of points that he made that I would love to sit and debate them on one at a time. I would absolutely love to, because there were misstatements made. Just things were just not right. So you heard it from one side only from him. Keep that in mind. And basically, that's all I'm going to say as a district representative. Now, so here's what I originally was going to say. My wife and I have lived in Ridgecrest nearly 38 years now. I realized this after our recent wedding anniversary of 35 years. We've been involved in opposing state mandates that negatively impact our community, as well as communities statewide. I've never seen the city support legislation that would grant unfettered power to any unelected bureaucratic body that would impose mandates, fees, taxes, or directives. Realizing the potential cost and negative impact on our community, as well as community statewide, the city has always fought to protect us against this unchecked process. A few recent instances where out-of-control bureaucracy comes to mind that have resulted in negative impacts to our community include the CalRecycle's mandate on mandatory recycling, the state mandate for electric vehicles for public agencies, and a California Air Resources Board gas fee that could raise our gas prices up to 60 cents. So there's some bureaucratic organizations that can just do these things, can just do them. Excuse me, communities are under attack by the state of California who are going to stand up for us. It's time for this council to do the right thing and stand against this type of legislation. You should have received some information about people who stand against this, and I'm just going to read a few of them because I do have a couple minutes. I'm not going to go through them all because there's lots of them. There's maybe 3 or 4 people supporting these bills. There's dozens against it. Alta Irrigation District, Arvin Groundwater Sustainability Agency, California Chamber of Commerce, California Municipal Utilities Association, California Water Association, Coelho Groundwater Sustainability Agency, Central Delta Mendota Groundwater Sustainability Agency, Central Kings Groundwater Sustainable Agency, East Turlock Sub-Basin Groundwater Sustainable Agency, El Rico Groundwater Sustainable Agency, Henry Miller Water District Groundwater Sustainable Agency, Indian Wells Valley Water District, Indian Wells Valley Economic Development Corporation, Kern County Taxpayer Association, Kern Non-Districted Land Authority, Tulare Water District Groundwater Sustainability Agency, Kern Water Bank Groundwater Sustainability Agency, Ridgecrest Area Association of Realtors, Searles Valley Minerals. The point is, and I'm not reading them all, there's at least a dozen GAs on here and many more coming that oppose this unless amended. So when you look at this as a statewide issue, you're not just talking about us, you're talking about affecting the state. And I truly believe that this community, I thought about this community has always fought against unfettered bureaucratic directives. And what these bills are going to do is allow just that. You're going to have an agency that can basically do what they like, and fees, a science, not even look at science. You could literally have somebody come up with numbers that are automatic. And that's why I have a problem. So I'm not going to address the specific issues for this basin. That's for another time. But I'll gladly talk about the issues that Mr. McKinney brought up if anybody wants to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chris Ellis, Ridgecrest. Just not to go into any of the details, but I was curious because I don't think that Councilman Gorman's question got answered, and I think that Director Kaczynski raised it also. I thought your question was where did these bills initiate, and maybe I misheard, and I did not hear that get answered. I heard a tap dance around it, I thought. So it'd be great if we actually heard that. I'd also be interested in, again, to Director Kaczynski's point, we brought in a couple of people who support one position, and I think as a community, we like to hear the entire position rather than just one. So I'm curious who's paying these consultants, if the city's paying them, or if the GA is paying them, and if we'll get an opportunity to hear from other experts that would make us understand the other side of this issue, because as, again, Director Kaczynski points out, there are a multiple of detractors as compared to the number of proponents, and so I'd like to understand it better. So that's all. That's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can directly answer that question. The agencies, DWR, State Water Resources Control Board, and the Office of the Governor were in discussions in 2024 with the Fox Canyon Groundwater Management Agency and the Indian Wells Valley Groundwater Authority regarding the drafting of legislation. Suggested language was provided by those two agencies to the legislature. The legislature rejected the Indian Wells Valley Groundwater Authority. The legislation that you have in print right now is essentially drafted by Assemblymember Pappen with work from DWR, State Water Resources Control Board, and members of the Assembly Judiciary Committee. Assemblymember Hart's bill actually was drafted partially by people in the Coahoma Basin and was drafted by Legislative Council originally. It was not drafted by anybody in this area. In terms of who I work for the city. I also work for the Indian Wells Valley Groundwater Authority. I'm paid by both. And there are a number of supporters of this bill. Also, I heard a number of groundwater sustainability agencies that, I'm sorry, I have not encountered in Sacramento as we have testified on this bill, or who have put in letters of opposition. Now, they may do that in the Senate, and I may be unaware of them as put forward, but that list to me is brand new. So I can give you all of the supporters if you want, but it's beyond just a couple of agencies at this particular point.
If I may.
No,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
Again, the only time I get upset is when people tap dance around and give BS answers, and that's what's happening here. I mean, we can dump this on Assembly Member Pappen, but, you know.
I'm sorry, what part of my answer wasn't clear?
You're saying that, Assembly Member Pappen wrote this legislation?
I said in conjunction with state agencies and
Well,
with
someone
members
else
of the
wrote the
legislature.
legislation, because Pappen didn't even know what it was when she was questioned until after, is what I was told, so.
You're incorrect.
maybe- yeah, I'm incorrect, that's fine. That's fine. Again, and I'm not saying there aren't a bunch of proponents either. There's a bunch of proponents. What I'm saying is, I'd like to hear both sides, that's all I'm saying.
Good evening. I'm Scott O'Neill, citizen of Ridgecrest, also called, well, I won't get into that. I have two comments. One has to do with the bills, and one has to do with the process of figuring out whether we should support these bills or not from the city of Ridgecrest perspective. So first off, we heard tonight that AB 1413 doesn't provide anything, and I'll quote, doesn't provide anything new beyond what's already provided in Sigma. So my first question is, then why do we need the legislation? Unless there's some ulterior motive. So AB 1413 does provide an absolute authority to the groundwater authorities in defining the sustainable yield. And I personally think that's an undemocratic approach to how we want to do business in this country. But the statements also said that Sigma, provides us local authority, and that's good. And I'm always for local authority until my representatives don't listen to us locally. And these representatives aren't elected representatives, they're appointed representatives. So the bill gives absolute authority to a group that can choose to or not choose to listen to new data that's being put on the table to try to get to what actually the truth really is regarding the groundwater dynamics in our valley. So I have some problems with that. And what's the real purpose of this legislation? If Sigma is all-encompassing, then why do we need more legislation to make sure that we're doing the right thing? So that's just an unanswered question that I have. Now, regarding the city and the support that the city has already provided to representatives in Sacramento regarding this legislation, these two bills, I personally think that that support has been brought forth illegally. And I would like to see the city retract that letter that was signed out basically illegally. And then I would like to see tonight a motion made on what the city is going to do, whether to support these legislation or not, and then to make a vote on it so we can see how our representatives actually stand. And I want to see that prior letter retracted by the city. So I would like to see us start injecting some more formal ways to create our statements and our positions with regarding, these kind of things. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, to address the needs of why the legislation was required, in both the Indian Wells Valley groundwater case and in the Kiama case, the judges indicated that the current law was simply not clear, and that while they understood the reading that people had of the law on both sides, they were having trouble reconciling the requests. So the legislation is necessary to do what the judge is asked to do, which is to help reconcile that and clarify the legislature's intent and position. There is, from the position of the proponents, there is nothing new. This is the way we believe Sigma should have worked. And again, that public process, if the GSA was not, quote, listening, then it is subject to a validation action. And that is the due process. Or it is subject to regulatory requirements within DWR that could declare it to be insufficient and kicked back. But the adjudication process comes years after the fact without a statute of limitations and requests a complete and utter review without any deference given to the Sigma process. And yet you have two pieces of statute, existing law, that says a judge in an adjudication may not substantially interfere with the Sigma process. And so the judges are having a difficult time reconciling that. And that's the reason for the legislation.
Hi, my name is Isabel. Bear with me, everybody. I'm a little nervous. I come to speak to you guys about what everybody else has already said. I feel like the council has not been transparent with what is going on. I watched a meeting in early May where Mr. Skip suggested a public forum, and nobody supported him. And I believe he did say that he would have a nervous council by speaking up about a public forum. As a citizen of Ridgecrest, that's very suspicious. It's not something I want to hear, that the council is going to be nervous to hear public comments about things. I agree with Mr. Ellis about having both sides of the argument. I heard Mr. McKinney say that not passing these bills will open up adjudication for more basins. However, when I watched these bills come up to the Senate, I believe in April, there was an expert that said that passing these bills could open up more adjudications. So that's conflicting, and I think that the people deserve to know both sides and hear information from both sides. I also wish that the Groundwater Authority would make their meetings a little bit more accessible to the public, because having them in the middle of the day on a Wednesday is not really, something that a lot of people can attend. So yeah, I just feel like everybody needs to be a little bit more transparent. I really don't want to hear from the guy on the screen. He seems to be, standing on business on whatever it is that he's saying. I want to hear more transparency from our council. I want to hear more experts coming in to explain these complicated things to the public, because I really don't understand any of this legal terms that he's saying. I want our council to speak to us and listen to us. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Hello, Lindsay Stevens. Been a while since I've been up here. Wasn't really planning on saying anything this evening, but seems like since I was on council a while ago, nothing has changed in regards to this except for hundreds of thousands of dollars continuing to flow to what I would call out-of-town special interests. The lawyers have racked up hundreds of thousands. Now we're paying for even more out-of-town special interests to write ridiculous laws that give over power that these agencies shouldn't have. Then he says, oh, we listen to public comment. Throwing someone's comment at the back of 700-page document isn't really listening to it. I recall back several years ago, we gathered several thousand signatures that said they weren't for what the GSA was doing and the fees that were being implemented. Unfortunately, that was during COVID, so this room was closed off, and they basically just took those and threw them aside and said, we're going to do what we want to do anyways. And that is what has consistently happened throughout this process. And I think when this agency, the GSA, was created, no one would have signed off on saying move forward with this because of how difficult it has been, because no one listens. Finally, the water district has changed their position from what it was originally during the inception, and they have said, whoa, we don't like how this is headed, and we have new data. And they've been not allowed to be the head of the meeting. They've been excluded. And I'll be honest, the closed session process has been overly abused for years. Everything is labeled as potential litigation. I questioned this when I was on council, because it's like, you could potentially say everything is potential litigation, and then you're just back behind closed doors discussing whatever you want, and no one can hold you accountable for anything. And a lot of business is behind closed doors. In addition, there's a lot of meetings that the Brown Act is supposed to prevent from happening, but they still happen anyways. People make the serial phone calls. And it is completely ridiculous that 2 council members would go up to Sacramento, say that the city supports this, and it was never voted on by the full council. And it's ridiculous that the letter had the wrong people's names on it. So it absolutely should be rescinded because of that. And so you guys need to do better, and you need to actually start listening, because people are not happy with the direction that the GSA is going, and to then give them even more unfettered power, saying, oh, we can do whatever we want and no one will be able to take us to court anymore, is insane. So please, stop what you're doing and start listening more. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Ty Staley. I speak for myself. I am an employee of the Water District, but I appreciate you guys having this meeting, having an open session, having discussion about it. About this legislation. One of the reasons brought up earlier about why we're having this legislation is to maintain local control. I find that a little ironic with the Groundwater Authority, where 3 members of that Groundwater Authority board live 2 hours away. So they're making decisions for us, even though they don't live in this valley. So I want you to keep that in mind when you're thinking about this. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, guys. My name is Sandra Boyle, and to be honest, I don't understand any of this stuff. I came here hoping for some clarification. I am more confused than when I walked in the door. I don't know what any of this is. If somebody could explain this stuff in layman terms, I would love it. And also, is it AB 466 or is it SB?
AB 1413 and 1466.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Terry Mitchell. I am a Ridgecrest resident. You guys have seen me here before on other topics. I wasn't going to say anything. I was coming here to try and get some clarification, understand where things are going, but all it's done is made me question things even more. It is very unclear, but you also have to understand, I'm a graduate of Big Pine High School from the Owens Valley, and I don't trust anybody on water issues. Okay? And so I just think this is the cluster. And I am very concerned because you got all this legalese, this guy right here that is obviously pushing a position, is what he's doing. You got people out here who want to be able to express their intent. They want to understand. And, you know, when this came up a long time ago, I've been in this valley since '85. This is an issue. Water's an issue. We understand that. But why aren't we listening to these other surveys that now we have experts that have, you know, we have better equipment and such? Why aren't we taking these things into consideration? I just don't think we're utilizing what we should. And as I said, I don't trust anybody on water issues. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathy Russell, resident of Ridgecrest for, I don't know, over 30 years. I guess first off, the person speaking, his name was?
Mike McKinney?
Mike McKinney? Okay, and he's a lobbyist paid for the city, by the city and the Groundwater Authority that both support these bills. So in other words, we're getting the opinion supporting these bills. We don't really have an open mind of not supporting these bills, which I was hoping to get. And I know it seems small and it seems bad in a small town that the city of Ridgecrest and the Water District can't be on the same page. That's disheartening to me, that we're not trying to do the same thing and involve litigation that will take it out of our hands. So that's concerning that we can't get on the same page. It's our water, not just the water district's not just the city's water. So I'd appreciate, it's just disheartening to me to do that. So it seems to me this is like a little late in the program, that the bills are already there being ready to be passed by the Senate. What happens if the bills pass? Do all the adjudications go away? Is that what happens? So what does it solve, other than, I'm trying to think. We're already, it's gonna be probably approved. I mean, it's in the Senate, so what happens next? What happens to our adjudication? What happens to our water rights? Mr. Kaczynski said, or Mr. McKinney said, that the IWB decided not to submit we've all seen the paperwork that says the yield is different than what they say it is. We can use more water than they're saying. And I've read the studies. Nobody's in agreement on those studies. Yet, if it's just going up there for the litigation, then it's not going to the GA. They said that we can have those amended or validated, but who's validating that if they don't even support the documentation that's been presented? So I'm a little concerned that we really don't have a prayer, so to speak. I don't know what happens, because I'm pretty sure these little Ridgecrest is not going to impact whether or not these bills get passed. So I'm just very disheartened that we can't all work together as a community. What happens to the Navy? What happens to all of us if this goes south? So anyway, I would expect better from everybody, to work better together. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, that's a good question regarding what happens next if the legislation were to pass. That's actually a great question. And the answer is that the adjudication to determine the water rights within the Indian Wells Valley would continue. In addition, there would be a validation action to determine whether or not the GSP sustainable yield is the correct sustainable yield and would be validated or invalidated. And then you would move forward with the various aspects of the adjudication trial. So it is not that an adjudication stops as a result of the passage of AB 1413 or 1466. Again, it is just setting up that mechanism for the court to reconcile those two positions. It does not get rid of the ability of somebody to adjudicate their water right, and we would assume that that would continue under 1413 and 1466, but it would satisfy the requirement at least through the next periodic evaluation as to what the sustainable yield was in the basin. So it would set that number, and nobody would be able to pump above that number. Below it, yes. Above it, no. And I think it is something to say that there is absolutely no reason for a groundwater sustainability agency to set a number that is artificially low in a particular basin. You would expect to see somebody trying to set a number in a basin that is artificially high, but not artificially low in this particular case. So I don't think that there is, this legislation doesn't get rid of adjudications. It's not meant to get rid of adjudications. It's meant to do what the court has asked us to do and reconcile those two positions. And that is it.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Mike Neal. What I just heard was, I'm going to say, a smokescreen action. That's what that was. We all know, anybody who's looked at this, that these bills are designed to put a hand around the throat of this adjudication lawsuit and defeat the entire purpose of it, which is to get good, actual groundwater studies put forward so that we can determine who gets what allocations and how much everybody gets, instead of the predetermined outcome that's always been the case with the GA since within the first 6 months it ever started, period. With the GA, it's always been 7,650 acre feet of water recharge. We got to have a $350 pipeline. That's it. And they have slandered the water district. They have made accusations. You heard the same veiled accusations tonight. Basically, they weren't direct, but you can pull them out. You can figure out what they are. With all this, because an appointed body, appointed in an un-American fashion, none of them elected to the GA board, period. You can't cleanse the board. It's impossible. The Water District listens to people, the GA does not. I used to come to the GA meetings and I just quit. I got so sick of going and watching how obvious it was that there was an agenda being pursued, and it didn't matter what people had to say. So I just quit. It's no point. It's a waste of time. Besides that, it's ridiculous to have something this important be heard at 11 in the morning in the middle of the week, and they refused to change the meeting time, period. They were asked over and over. If you can't figure out that the GA does not represent the people of this basin, then you're choosing to be blind. That's all there is to it. And it needs to be done away with. And that's exactly what I'm proposing to certain groups in town who may have the firepower to make that happen. We need to be done with the GA because the GA does not listen to the people. We don't want a pipeline that's going to double or triple our water bill. It's already taken $14 million from the water district, paid it all to lawyers and consultants, and hasn't yet to buy one single water allocation at all. And look at the state of water in California and tell me how successful you think they're going to be in buying 8,000 acre feet of water allocation to pump through a $350 million pipeline. I mean, that is just beyond any kind of reasonable sense. We need to approach it differently. The water district people have researched methods, one of which is real obvious, and the city is stonewalling, which is looking at making use of the wastewater treatment plant water, 1,500 to 2,000 acre feet more water available. Mr. Strand wants to just stand against it and not cooperate with the water district so they can move forward. The city and the county are the ones who have pushed this beyond reason, and we need to be done with the GA in this valley.
Are there any more individuals that wish to come? Okay.
Thank you, Aaron.
All right, so my name's Aaron Crutchfield, and I'm a resident of Ridgecrest, also editor at the Daily Independent, and I have a follow-up question for Mr. McKinney, if he'd be able to pop on here.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, thank you. So in the agenda for the May Groundwater Authority meeting, so this is dated May 14th. It's a legislative update, and it starts off with IWVGA is the primary proponent on two pieces of state legislation dealing with groundwater adjudication. These bills were developed in response to a legislative proposal authored by the authority for the 2025-26 legislative session. So now you were saying that 1413 was written mostly by Department of Water Resources, and that 1466 was written in part by Cuyama Valley. So I'm just seeing, is that correct? Is what you're saying correct? Is there a clarification?
As the primary proponent, Indian Wells, along with Fox Canyon, are the primary proponents. They are not the sponsors of the legislation and did not write the legislation. As I indicated, the legislative proposal that was put forward, that was developed in coordination with some of the agencies, or with the comment of some of the agencies, was rejected. And the bills that were drafted by the authors and the agencies separately from them. We support them as the Indian Wells Valley Groundwater Authority. Fox Canyon and another GSA in the area does that as well. They support those bills along with the California Alliance for Family Farmers. But we are not the sponsors or the author of that legislation. Those were written differently. We are the primary proponent of what they wrote.
Okay, so the part where it says authored by the authority for the 2025-26 legislative session. So
the legislative proposal, as you said before, read the entire statement. It says the legislative proposal for the 2025-2026 session that is partially based upon the concerns that were raised upon by DWR in the state, but it is not the same proposal.
Okay, I was just making sure that the legislative update here was correct or incorrect, so.
It is accurate.
Okay, I thought it seemed to conflict, but What do I know? I'm just a newspaper editor. Anyway, thank you.
Absolutely.
My name is Sophia Merck. I have a question. There seems to be a difference in the water estimates from the GSA and the Indian Wells Valley Water District. My question is, if it proves out to be that the Indian Wells Valley Water Department, their estimate is better and more logical, then that would bring us back to be, instead of being critically overdraft, to medium overdraft. So therefore, the way that we approach it will be different. So is this council going to look at that? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I wanted to point out that we are on this agenda under an item called presentations, sub-item 2. If those sitting in the audience is expecting, subsequent to this presentation, a motion to be made and possibly voted on, that won't happen because of the difference between a presentation and a discussion on the agenda. There is no discussion on this agenda. Could you explain that, Mr. Mayor? The extent to which you don't make motions and vote on discussion items, on presentation items?
Yeah, my understanding is it's the way it was added to the bill changes the way that we can react, if that's...
Certainly. Thank you, Honorable Mayor, council members. Action can only be taken by the council on action items. Action items are agendized as action items, whether it's discussion, consent, number of them. Presentations, like the employee presentation that preceded the update on the two bills, which is the items that is agendized is an update on the status of AB 1413, AB 1466. The council and the mayor obviously allowed the public to comment and even ask questions on this item. It is not an action item, however, so no action can be taken under the Brown Act by the council tonight.
Thank you.
All right. So that ends the presentation item. I'm going to ask for a biological break for everyone. I've been chugging coffee, so I need one. But if we could take 5 minutes and then come back, I would greatly appreciate that if the council allows. The biologic break. I appreciate that. So we're going to move on to public comment of items not on the agenda. Persons wishing to address the council on matters that are within the council's jurisdiction and do not already appear on the agenda may do so at this time. Council will respond to any public comments, but may provide direction to staff to collect information. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the City Council may not act on an item that does not appear on this agenda. Speakers are limited to 5 minutes. The public comment section of the agenda is limited to a total of 1 hour. Each speaker is asked to provide his or her name. Do we have any public comment for items not on the agenda? Okay. Seeing none?
Nope, Mr. Neal's
Oh,
coming.
oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were just waving hi to us.
Once again, Mike Neal. So at home, I watched the last meeting about this litigation supposedly, and watched, and let me just make a suggestion that's may not have been made before. At the Water District, they have closed session, and it stops at 6 o'clock if they're not done. And they go on with their regular business, so as not to make members of the public wait. And then they finish the regular business, and then if they need to, they go back into closed session. So I propose that the council adopt that methodology for their meetings, because let's take last meeting. You went and you had a few public comments about the closed session, and you went into closed session for over 4.5 hours. Poor Mr. O'Neill sat here, I guess, through that, or maybe watched it on the web, and then came running back in. But he came to try to comment, and it's like, oh, well, we're done. We're going on. Now, there was a problem there also. When you have a meeting, you're supposed to approve the agenda. And if you approve the agenda and you don't want to continue with an item on the agenda, it's supposed to go on the agenda for the next meeting. What happened last week was you just dropped the discussion item, didn't talk about it. I don't see it on this agenda for this meeting, so it floated away, it disappeared. Well, that's improper procedure, and you need to correct that kind of thing. You need to do it right next time. There are people who wanted to be involved in that discussion, and they could have. I mean, it was a long closed session, but I believe when you stopped, it was only 7 o'clock, so it wasn't like asking you to stay here till 10 o'clock and continue on. So that's, it turns out to be kind of a slap in the face to the public when they sit here for a really long time, and then you say, oh, we're not going to do that discussion item, we're just going to drop it and go on. We want to go home. We want to have dinner. Outside of that, that's all I got to say.
Actually, Mr. Neal, I will say at the end of the meeting, we moved it to the July
18th, and that is depicted on the minutes from that meeting, which are on this agenda. The minutes from the meeting of the June 11th specifically state, due to a long closed session, 7:45 p.m., the items continued till July 18th, 2025 meeting.
Well, it's a long
I will
delay, but
correct that. When it comes up for consent, it is the July 16th meeting, so we will need to adjust that when we approve it, but it is on there.
Wrong date.
Okay.
Wrong date.
I'm glad you stopped me too, because I have one other thing, and that I would like to see one of the council members make a motion to put for discussion AB 1413 and AB 1466 for the public to discuss even further and have a vote on whether they're going to oppose as a council instead of just two members going off on their own saying they represent the city on these bills.
Thank you, Mr. Neal. Are there any other public comment for items not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to council announcements and direction. Any member of the council have announcements or direction?
Yeah, I just wanted to remind the public that we have, the July 2nd meeting is canceled because it's the holiday week and most folks will be gone.
Okay.
Over.
Thank you.
Anything else? No? All right, moving on to consent calendar. All items listed on consent are considered to be routine and non-controversial by city staff. Consent items may be approved by one motion if no member of the council or audience wishes to comment or ask questions. If comment or discussion is desired by anyone, the item will be removed from the consent calendar and will be considered in listed sequence, with an opportunity for any member of the public to address the city council concerning the items before action is taken. There are 4 consent items, and they are listed on the posted agenda. Does any member of the council wish to have an item pulled?
Before the item is pulled, we have a correction on the draft minutes that are on consent?
Yes. On the June 11th minutes, we need to change that to July 16th, not the 18th, please.
Okay. Is that a motion item?
Yeah, with a,
It's just a staff correction.
Okay. Does any member of the public wish to have an item pulled?
Yeah, number 6 up there, this is Scott O'Neill, citizen of Ridgecrest. Number 6 up there just raised to my mind something I just wanted to bring to your attention. I live on Bataan Street, and they just opened the street up to put down a conduit, to run a new electrical conduit. And the street repair done by the contractor was horrible. It still is horrible. And I don't know what the city does to inspect those kind of jobs, but I do think that you need to have the contractor come back and fix the street.
Did we pull that one? No, okay. Okay, thank you for your comment. Okay, so seeing no individual wanting to pull an item, do I have a motion for the consent calendar?
Motion to approve with the correction as stated.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, motion and second.
Please vote.
It failed.
Oh.
Fail.
He said, give me a minute.
Oh, give him a minute.
We'll go ahead and do a roll call vote. Mayor Endicott?
Aye.
Mr. Blades?
Aye.
Mr. Rajaratnam?
Aye.
Mr. Heyman?
Aye.
Mr. Gorman?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next, we have public hearings. A resolution and public hearing of the City Council of the City of Ridgecrest, California, declaring its intent to levy and collect assessments within the City of Ridgecrest Drainage Benefit Assessment District Number 2016, TAC 1, pursuant to the provisions of the Benefit Assessment Act of 1982. Review of the preliminary engineer's report and authorization to finalize said report for fiscal year 2025-2026. I am now opening the public hearing. And, yeah.
Mr. Mayor, members of City Council, this is an annual report that's filed with council and given the public the opportunity to comment. What we have before you is our drainage assessment district. The only changes we have from last year to this year is the equivalent benefit unit is being increased from 3212 per unit to 9187, and that's primarily to cover the damage that was caused by Hurricane Hillary. It is still well below the maximum EBU that can be applied of 122, so I'm recommending take public comment and approve so we can finalize the engineer report for the next meeting.
Okay, like to open it up to receive comments, right? Are there any public comments on this public hearing item? Are there any council comments? Oh. Seeing no public comments, I'm going to close the public hearing. Are there any council comments?
No comments.
Mr. Gorman? No? Okay. Then we put it up to a vote.
I don't know how this is going to go. But
We can just do a roll call if need be.
Yeah, just motion.
Oh, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second.
Okay, we're going to go and do roll call. I'm trying to get his signals and read them, but now yeah. Mayor Endicott?
Aye.
Mr. Blades?
Aye.
Mr. Rajaratnam?
Aye.
Mr. Heyman?
Aye.
Mr. Gorman?
Aye.
5 ayes, motion carries.
Okay, next we have public hearing number 8, a resolution and public hearing the City Council of the City of Ridgecrest, California, declaring its intent to levy and collect assessments within the Consolidated Landscaping and Lighting District number 2012 TAC 1, review of the preliminary engineer's report and authorization to finalize said report for fiscal year 2025-2026. I am opening the public hearing and staff comments.
Yes, as stated by Mr. Reed during our last meeting, the benefit assessment pretty much remains the same. However, council did ask staff to come back with a recommendation on an issue we have in Zone 3. In Zone 3, council some years back set the levy on 4 of the parcels at $100 per year, and 2 of the parcels at 0. And what that's done to the benefit district has caused us to be in the rears, in the negative, and so we've been having to make up those costs through the general fund. Council asked staff to come back with a plan. Our recommendation to council is to begin to assess these parcels at what the current levy is, except to phase them in over a 4-year period of time. In other words, 25% the first year, 50% the second year, 75% the third year, and then having it 100% the fourth year. And that will allow us to better balance that district in regards to maintenance of the landscape as well as the funding of the lights in the area. So that would be our recommendation for the plan. It'd be up to you guys for discussion and approval.
All right, are there any public comments? Or I'm receiving public comments? All right, seeing none, I'm going to close the hearing. Are there any council comments? No. All right, so I have a couple. Just a clarification, what does EBU stand for?
It's an equivalent benefit unit.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just a way of being able to equally disperse the cost of the district amongst those who benefit from it. In some aspects, I think in this case here, there's about a 10% public benefit, which the city funds, and then the 90% is funded by those who actually benefit from the improvements.
Okay.
So it's just a way of trying to come up with a number. And that number is originally established at the first engineer report where there was a vote of the people who were in the district. And it's established from there, and by our ordinance and by law, we can only increase that by 3.5% a year. So you'll see in the report, there's what they call as a maximum EBU assessment, and then there's, what we actually assess. So we can assess anywhere from the maximum down below. If it turns out something happens and we need to go above that number, then we have to go back and do another, what they call 218 hearing to be able to adjust that number higher. I don't see that in this case. Fixing Zone 3 is just going back and charging those parcels that have been, been getting a reduced rate, charging them what everybody else in that area is paying,
Okay.
which would resolve the issue.
Yeah, so, so it's just a 25% increase each year along with the 3.5% increase allowable.
Right, and normally we have not gone to that amount. Most of our EBUs are below the maximum because Travis Reed does these reports as our city engineer. And he does a really good job at making sure that once we reach our recommended reserve amount, that we lower our collections so it's reasonable. And if something happens like in the way of Hurricane Hillary, where we had additional damage and we had some costs to be able to clean up the drainage basins that were damaged by the event, then we can raise that up for a little bit, rebuild the reserve, and then drop the costs back down.
Thank you. Any other council comments?
There is a lot of landscaping taking place. Well, landscaping, there's dirt being scraped all over the place. I think along Norma, near the Mormon church, next door to... Mojave View. Yes, Mojave View. It looked like a new Mojave View was going to go in, but apparently that's not the case.
Correct. When council approved that contract about a month ago, and you approved the contract to build that basin, that retention basin we're going to have in there. And that basin's developed to take a 100-year flood. So that's what they're currently doing right now. There is no building that is just going to be a huge sump.
A big hole.
A big hole in the ground with a fence around it, yes. And that's what, hopefully, in our major rain events, that neighborhood over there gets 2-3 feet underwater.
Oh.
And
I remember. It was a mess. Travis Reed was heroic in what he did.
correct. And if you remember right, we do see a lot of water that ends up by the hospital that crosses the road and usually
Yes,
shuts down
yes.
the roadway. This is going to help mitigate that flooding during those events.
We ought to put up signs. Picture of a big hole.
I do think that we did put out a post yesterday, basically saying that they started the process. There's a little video on there. I do think we're going to get maybe some drone shots, some aerial shots as that progresses so the public can see exactly what that is. I mean, the people who live in that area should see hopefully a reduction in their insurance rates because it should take them out of that flood zone. So there is a significant benefit to that effort.
Thank you.
All right, well, do I have a motion on public hearing number 8?
I so move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Do we need to take that motion with staff's recommendation of the increase of 25%?
So by making the motion, you're moving the staff recommendation of a accelerated 4-year step up
Yeah,
for the parcels.
which to be clear to the public, we asked the staff to go off and do. They came back appropriately, which I appreciate. I read through the staff report, so I second the motion with the recommendations.
Is that your motion as well?
Yes?
Okay, all right. So,
Mayor Endicott?
aye.
Mr. Blades?
Aye.
Mr. Rajaratnam?
Aye.
Mr. Heyman?
Aye.
Mr. Gorman?
Aye.
5 ayes, motion carries.
All right, next, we will move on to ordinance item number 9, a second reading and adoption of ordinance 25-01, an ordinance to amend the zone map for the property located on North Downs Street between West Ward and West Graff, APN 453-014, tax 09, tax 00, tax 0. Madam Spurlock. Or do I have to do the motion?
There we go.
Staff.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council.
I think your mic went off again.
Riley, can you advance the slide for me?
Do you need this?
Yeah, if you can just click it once.
Oh, I clicked it, it didn't
So
go.
this is a second reading.
Riley's coming out. We must have an issue.
You don't have my slide? Okay.
We don't have slides? No.
It
Okay.
probably accidentally
Guess you don't
went
need
to
the,
Kevin.
don't need the pointer then, huh?
This item's before the council.
Yes, so this is a second reading and adoption of an ordinance. It is a zone amendment. This is a vacant parcel that is private property. Staff did initiate this zone change because it is currently zoned RSP, which is public use. That could potentially have been because it is adjacent to a property owned by Sierra Sands, but I'm not sure exactly why. So we are rezoning, asking for you to rezone it to commercial neighborhood. The property owner is aware and obviously in favor of that. So this is just a second reading. I will keep it brief, but if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to address that.
No, and I believe the map is all in the agenda.
Yes, it's in the staff report.
Yep, it's in the staff
That
report.
was all my slide was, just showing where it was.
Nope, thank you. I have no questions. I appreciate what you're doing, because you have worked, so this is something that if you're not in this over these last few years, you may not be aware of, and that is that Heather has worked tirelessly to help get us up to speed, get our general plan squared away, and get zoning squared away. You've done so much work. It's been a Herculean task. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions by council? No? 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 Okay. So, do we have public comment? Yes? Thank you for the assist.
Hi.
Okay.
So changing the zone on this property, do what?
Hold the microphone down so we
yeah.
can hear you. There you go.
Is that better?
Just pull it all the way down to you. There you go, thank you.
Is that better?
Yes.
So changing the zoning on this property, does that mean it's more, you're going to build more SB9 property?
We're not building anything. It is commercial neighborhood that we're changing it to. So the properties to the north of this are owned by the same property owner, and those are zoned commercial general. So this allows for, any potential commercial uses in that, on that property.
Now, commercial, you mean businesses?
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, so I have two motions. Okay. Motion to waive reading in full of ordinance 25-01, an ordinance to amend the zone map for the property located on North Downs between West Ward and West Graff with that APN number. Read the next one too?
No,
Or-
just the one, and we'll take a vote.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
Yeah, so moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Oh, battle for second. All right. So motion and second?
Mayor Endicott?
Aye.
Mr. Blades?
Aye.
Mr. Rajaratnam?
Aye.
Mr. Heyman?
Aye.
Mr. Gorman?
Aye.
5 ayes, motion carries.
Next, we have a motion to introduce by title only ordinance 25-01, an ordinance to amend the zone map for the property located on North Downs between West Ward and West Graff with that APN number. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second.
Mayor Endicott?
Aye.
Mr. Blades?
Aye.
Mr. Rajaratnam?
Aye.
Mr. Heyman?
Aye.
Mr. Gorman?
Aye.
5 ayes, motion carries.
Thank you very much. Next, we get to our committee reports. All of the ones that I will read will be happening subsequently. We have the Economic Development Committee. The next meeting is on July 7th in Conference Room B on the first floor. After that, we'll have the Finance Committee, July 8th, Conference Room B, first floor. Infrastructure Committee will be meeting June 26th in Conference Room B on the first floor at 5 o'clock. That's important for Mayor Endicott to remember. I showed up late. And then we have Parks, Recreation, and Quality of Life. Next meeting is July 1st at City Hall Council Chambers. Do we have any other committees, boards, or commissions?
Kern Cog's meeting tomorrow around 6, I think. I'll have to check. I'm just lately being late. So whenever we have another meeting here, I'll report on that.
Thank you. I would have had a report from LAFCO as it's happening right now, but I decided to be here. I thought today was a good day to miss LAFCO. Any other committees, boards, or commissions? No? City manager report.
Yeah, I'll give you a quick update on the pool. The bid alternatives have been completed. I spoke to our architecture firm this morning. We're looking to put out a list to identify, or at least develop a qualified bidder list because of the nature of the pool and the type of construction. We think we'll get a better list of folks, a better cost back by going through that. Also looking at next week, we should have the bid documents ready for our law firm to review. So we're getting closer.
Are we still hoping for sometime in July, hopefully, shovels in the ground? Sorry for putting you on the spot. That was horrible.
I'm pushing these guys as hard as I can.
Okay.
So, yes, I'm
Okay.
hoping. But yeah, we should be getting the document out to the construction folks to develop our qualified bidder, because it makes things go a little bit quicker. Because really you have to, we're just identifying those who have the qualifications to accomplish the design, as well as those that have the funding in which to bond the project. And so it puts us in a better position of getting people to look at this ahead of time, sharpen their pencils, in hopes that we can get, a cost where we can include all the things we want in this public pool.
Okay. No other items? No.
No other items.
Okay. Next, we have future agenda items. Any council member have a future agenda item? All right. Next, we have mayor and council comments. Council, let's start with Skip. I always enjoy Skips.
You got that from your former mayor. I had occasion to drive early this week up to Bishop, and coming back, we stopped in Lone Pine at the, what's the name of that little cafe everyone loves?
Alabama Hills.
Alabama Hills Cafe. where you get a wonderful breakfast and a good lunch, and it's always really busy. You got to wait outside to get in. It's going to move, and it may already have 1 block south into the Schatz building, which will triple its interior room for tables, and you won't have to wait as long to get in. So I think the bakery part of the Alabama Hills Cafe will stay in its original location. So I wanted to point that out to you. So you drive by, almost always stop there or at the barbecue in Big Pine. Don't think it's closed. It's right nearby. One other item. That new sub sandwich place is open. Jersey Mike's. Jersey Mike's, to my way of tasting, it's better than Subway. But I really didn't say that.
It's on record now.
They're open now. That's all.
Thank you, Councilman Gorman. Ms. Raymond, you have any comments? Nope. Nope. Mr. Rajaratnam? Mr. Blades?
Yes, a few things. There is going to be a youth makers market. So it's going to be on Saturday, July the 19th, 8 to 11, Freedom Park by the splash pad, ages 7 to 17, and they can sell their handmade goods or crafts, showcase their available services, whatever those are, tutoring, lawn care, babysitting. So feel free to come out.
Awesome. Thank you. I also want to shout out Jersey Mike's. That was wonderful. What wonderful atmosphere, wonderful employees working. They were getting pressed by a line of people, but they maintained their enthusiasm. I hope that continues. The sandwich was fantastic. It was the first time I'd ever had Jersey Mike's. It was wonderful. I also want to highlight that I stopped by the protest that was Saturday morning. And it was a wonderful atmosphere. Everyone was well behaved. I appreciate the chief and the local police for coming out and maintaining decorum. There were a couple unsafe starts that I saw from vehicles seemingly swerving, but they didn't come close to the protesters. And the protesters seemed to handle themselves well. I am a huge advocate for the First Amendment, free speech, protest. I think that's what our country was founded on. We need to maintain those avenues. Second, I have a quick update from Vince Fong. At his request, an $8.9 million was included in the Military Construction and VA Appropriations Bill for planning and design for the new Child Development Center at NOS China Lake. The bill was reported out of committee last Thursday, and floor consideration may occur as early as the week of June 23rd. He also secured report language that directs the Navy to prioritize addressing infrastructure issues at China Lake outside of the earthquake rebuilding effort and provide quarterly updates to the Appropriations Committee and how the Navy is addressing this issue. And so I want to thank him for his partnership and for looking out for China Lake. Next, also on Saturday, I got to attend Cow Chip Bingo. I don't know if you guys have had the pleasure of doing that. I did not know really what it was going into it. And then I saw a bunch of people urging on a cow to evacuate its bowels in certain squares. That's the cow chip. Yeah, I was not aware. And so that was unique. I had my eyes opened. The other thing, I attended the Chamber of Commerce meeting on Friday night, yes, where we got to award individuals who have excelled in the community and stood out. It was a wonderful event. The first time going to a Chamber of Commerce meeting, an event like that, and so Rebecca, great job putting that on. It was absolutely wonderful to see the community and hear all of the kind words from the recipients and the sponsors of those awards about our community and how invested our community is in success. I also want to highlight that tomorrow is Juneteenth. Last Sunday was Father's Day. My annual tradition for Father's Day is that we go to a baseball game. I've had my son now, I guess, for 15 years. We've gone to a baseball game on Father's Day, and it's my favorite tradition to pass along with my son. We got to go to the Las Vegas Aviators Stadium. If you guys get the chance, it's a wonderful stadium, even though it's hot. The seats are ventilated. They have fantastic food, as you would expect something in Vegas to have. We will not meet before July 4th, so I want to wish everyone a happy July 4th. To me, that is my favorite holiday. Everything that it symbolizes, us coming together as a community, as a nation, to celebrate this great country that we have. And I want to talk about progress for a second. I live on College Heights, and I get to see the individuals who are out there walking and running up College Heights. And, you know, it dawned on me, actually, as I was coming to the meeting last Wednesday, that there are individuals that are trying to go through the steps of trying to get healthy. And it's probably overwhelming and it's uncomfortable to start. But you know, I've seen the same individuals running and walking up that hill, and it's that determination, that betterment, that it really does just take one step in front of the other as we try to do progress. It might not seem like you're getting immediate results, but progress does happen. And lastly, my grandmother sent me a quote from Martin Luther King Jr. that I want to read and end this on. It says, "The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy." I know, based on the attendance here tonight, that we are in a moment of challenge and controversy, and I appreciate everyone that came out to be heard. As I've said before, it's not easy to get up in front of your peers and talk and say things that might run counter to other people's ideas. And so my hat goes off to the individuals who got up to speak. Anytime that public comment happens, I'm so happy. I was really happy to see the amount of people here. I like having public engagement. I wish that we had more. And I really thank everyone that came out to voice their concerns and to demand the most out of this elected body, because we do have a financial or a fiduciary responsibility and a responsibility for our constituents, and I think that's what we're doing. I love discussion. I have a PhD, and I found that I am actually learning. As I learn more, I know less. And so I welcome individuals to try and educate me. And so that's all I have to say. Thank you very much. And we are adjourned.